Once upon a time in Hollywood North, Vancouver played itself. Wait a dang minute. Who wrote this? Cut! Oh, hi. You're here a bit early. Well, we're here talking about how Vancouver never really played itself. But what about a lot of independent film work that happens here? Okay, fine. Maybe it plays itself sometimes. But mostly, it doesn't. So if you're here early, let's talk about what historical conditions and then the analysis that played into developing Vancouver's culture, consumerism, and identity of a world city that never plays itself on the big screen. Every Frame Painting channel took a filmmaking approach, and today we're taking the historical one. So let's get into the historical background. Tax break cuts, affordability, and a beautiful landscape. These are all reasons that have led Vancouver to dominate in the last 40 years and become the third largest production center in North America. However, the history of film production in Vancouver goes all the way back to 1908, when the government of British Columbia hired a British filmmaker to shoot different locations in BC, for commercial purposes, of course. But the real boom in Vancouver's film industry happened in the late 1960s and early 1970s, a time, as David Spanner puts it, of a cultural combustion, where the rise of the hippie counterculture, the Vancouver riot, the freeway protests, more leftist ideals, and an interest in the U.S. civil rights movement influenced not only the film community of Vancouver, but also brought U.S. producers to the film in the city. That was a long sentence. All right. Since then, Vancouver has become one of the top filming cities in North America, where the Vancouver Film Commission estimates that the industry spent over $4 billion in 2019. This is a smart strategy on the part of the city, but it leads us to the question that if it's a leading industry and thus holds some semblance of power, one would hope, why is there an erasure of its cultural identity, and why does Vancouver never play itself or tell its own stories? Now, on to the research. The research I did led me to the realization that while the 70s was a time of cultural change, it was also a time of gentrification and rebuilding Vancouver to be more tourist-friendly, especially as a way to compete on the global scale as a world city. So with a smaller economy at the time, Vancouver was trying to grab at the opportunity to set itself up as a major world city with great economic power. As a survival strategy, Vancouver did pretty well. So while the counterculture movement is often linked to the development of the film industry, I suggest that it is more closely related to making the city tourist-friendly. Film is a way for people to recognize and build identities, and Vancouver never playing itself, a reflection of how the city is built on gentrification tourism, takes the Vancouver community's opportunity to relate their identity and history to space because it's erased. The culture of Vancouver becomes one of disconnect, and like Mike Gasher put it, people from Vancouver feel less compelled to consume in Canadian productions because there just isn't a sense of connection. The erasure leads to the question, what about the soul of Vancouver? Who suffers? Who is left on the fringes? Vancouver has so many cultural elements, but its desire to conform has created this loss in the sense of its history. People are engaging with the city, sure, but not really connected to it, and they suffer from never really feeling as deep of a connection to the space they inhabit. Well, what do we do? The brilliant thing about stories and filmmaking is that they can create a space for identity reclaiming and identity building, a place to look within oneself. So the way to wash away the erasure caused by gentrification and tourism is, while the Vancouver filming industry should continue to have foreign markets filmed here, the Vancouver film industry in itself should work towards investing in productions that tell compelling stories that connect with people from here and all over the world, that tells Vancouver's history, the good and the bad, the ethnic diversity and the riots of the 60s and 70s, and most importantly, to have Vancouver play itself. Well, it's getting quite dark now, but I'm glad you came early. Until next time, keep on seeking.